So good evening. We are back to the study of the Spirit's book. We are on chapter 2 of book 3, the moral laws. We are studying the law of adoration, and we studied prayer last week. And this week we are going to study the last two chapters, two items of this chapter, which are polytheism, and I forgot the other one, but we'll get there. Sorry? Sacrifices, yes, sacrifices. Okay, so it's 667. Philip, you start reading for us. Thanks.
Certainly. Why is polytheism one of the oldest and most widespread of human beliefs, despite being false? The concept of a single God could only have resulted from the evolutionary development of human thought. Incapable of conceiving an immaterial being with the power to act on matter, humankind naturally attributed physical features to God. Basically, a form and a face. From that point forward, everything that appeared to transcend ordinary human intelligence was regarded as divine. Whatever humans could not understand was regarded as being the work of a supernatural power, and led to the belief in the existence of as many separate powers as the numerous effects that were witnessed, but for which they could not account. However, there have been enlightened human beings in every era who have understood that it would be impossible for the world to be governed by this array of powers without a supreme ruler, and who were led to formulate the concept of the one and only God.
So let us reflect on the concept of polytheism, right? Because our beliefs in the very ancient times were polytheist. But why is that, right? We have to think of ourselves as more primitive beings, less evolved beings, that surrounded by the so-called supernatural effects that we didn't know how to explain, and mostly we feared them. Now, if we consider that we study Spiritism today, we understand the existence and presence of spirits in the spiritual world that are connected to us, and they communicate to us through the mediums or through inspiration and guidance. We can we know that this has happened all the time. Now, when this happened at the time of us as primitive beings, we attributed that to what we call supernatural, and we chose to call God. So God, in the beginning, the word God as we understand today, it was not used in that sense. It was used in the sense of a spirit that was responsible for something supernatural. So the sun, the rain, the thunderstorm, everything that happened that we couldn't find an explanation, we immediately associated with a God. And of course, if you think of most of people today, if you ask them, describe God, most people will try to describe God with human attributes, right? A vengeance, an old guy sitting in a throne. We still carry these misconceptions of God. Now go 10,000 years ago. We couldn't. If we cannot fully grasp the concept, 10,000 years ago, we needed to materialize God. How can we materialize God? Imagining exactly someone that someone that was with human features, right? That could be angry at us, because when we imagine God at that time, thinking about that time, God is just us, right? With all our imperfections, our attributes and imperfections, invisible, right? That rule our lives. So the different gods that rule our lives. So it made it much more easy for us to grasp that concept of a material God, in a sense, right? Than of an ethereal God that we can barely understand and explain. Now, as they said, as the spirits say here, there have been enlightened human beings in every era who have understood that it would be impossible for the world to be governed by this array of powers without a supreme ruler. So, the secret doctrine, right, that Elah mentions all the time, right? The secret doctrine, so people that understood the existence of a God, a supreme being, but they kept this concepts to themselves, because for different reasons, and every different civilization had their different features and the different beliefs. But all of them, if you go to the Vedas, which is the oldest organized concepts of spirituality, there is already concepts of God there. When Moses tries to bring the first idea of a unique God, right? What happened? Abraham. Yes, sorry, Abraham. Yes, Abraham. He brings the concept of an angry God, right? A vindictive God. You see, if you read in the Old Testament, God asks Abraham to sacrifice his own son as a proof of faithfulness to God, right? Then when Moses goes up to the Sinai and spends a very long time there, and then he comes back and brings the tables, what does he find? His people adoring the golden calf, right? Because it was physical, it was easier. So that's why Moses then had to create the whole rules, the commandments, the 613 commandments that he created in order for these people to learn discipline, to fear someone, because if they didn't fear God, he wouldn't be able to control them. So that's why he brings this concept. So we have to look at polytheism as something necessary and natural of the time, right? Because in our evolutionary process, we had to go through it, because it was something that was, when we were struggling to understand the spirituality concepts, the concept of something beyond the physical life, which always existed, which is a proof that, for those that don't believe, that are materialists, that don't believe in the afterlife, it has always been there in all civilizations that had no contact with each other. All of them had beliefs in God or gods or spirits, whatever we want to call them, right? So how it is possible that all the different civilizations believed in something? Because there is something, right? And all of them, you'll find these secret societies that worship God and had different beliefs than the general population. Even during the Christianity, the evolution of Christianity, most people didn't know how to read and write until the 19th century. Most people didn't know how to read and write. So who had access to the knowledge? Only the church, only those that were part of the controlling church, right? So in a sense, it was kind of still a secret doctrine, right? Only when Spiritism came and science broke away with religion, beginning of the 19th century, and then Spiritism brings all these teachings open to everyone, right? Started, of course, I'm not going to say that Spiritism started it, because you have Martin Luther already bringing the Bible in the original, in the native languages of each people, right? In German, in French, in English, because before that it was everything in Latin. So you didn't know how to read, you didn't know how to write, you didn't understand Latin. So you can imagine how was a mess in the 13th century. You go there, you don't understand anything that the priest is saying, you don't understand any of the notions. You know, it's very easy for you to, where does your mind goes, right? It's not there. You know, you're there because you're forced to, because it's, if you don't go to the church at that time, you know, you are burned, persecuted, arrested, but there was nothing for them to learn about spirituality at that time, right? So the natural process of evolution, as we think about polytheism, and because normally what we think is, wow, they believe in the multiple gods, but they were, you know, ignorant people. No, it's just the level of evolution at that time. It was the most appropriate set of beliefs for them at that time, because it was what they could deal with, right? So that was what the spirits are telling us here. So the concept, as Kardec says, being false, I would say that it was not really false. It's just a misunderstanding of the spiritual world, right? Replacing spirits with gods. And I think that when I was studying this, reading this today, I thought about, didn't the Catholic Church continue using that under a different format, right? Now you have God and the saints. What are the saints if not minor gods, right? Because the Greeks, they believed in gods and minor gods, right? You have Zeus, which is the supreme god, and then you had all the other gods, demigods and gods that worked with Zeus, right? So when the Christianity brought the notion of the saints, right? You can think that the saints are, right?
But even when we speak of natural evolution of our understanding of the concept of divinity, there is, even in mythology, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, and even some organized religion, very eloquent, spiritually speaking religions, that they have multiple gods, but they have a god of the god. They have
The boss.
The boss of the other gods.
Yeah, that's
that equals to our understanding of God today, pretty much.
Yeah.
Only one creator, but many managers, let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, if you think, it's already a correct
It is
notion.
evolutionary path.
Yeah, with a different nomenclature, but it's a different notion. Not completely wrong notion, right? Yeah.
And besides the necessity, in a time, as I said, there's no writing, there's no reading. The rituals was very important. The way you pass information to generation is not by writing, is through rituals, dance, storytelling, all those rituals. And for those rituals to be represented, you have to have an image. You have to create a theater to present it. So there is a necessity to have different individuals for you to tell a story, for you to develop a scenario and pass to generation. So then there was a necessity almost to have this large number of gods, and one represents this and one represents that, but most of them already had a top god, a god of the gods, so to say.
Yeah, and even when Jesus came, right? People ask why Jesus spoke in parables. Exactly because of that, because it was the way that people would remember the story and tell the story and carry the story. Because if he would just bring the teachings directly, it would be very easily distorted and forgot, right? So, yeah. Okay, questions, Danny?
So even today, we can get away from the word father to represent God. So
Yeah.
the
We
first
should.
question of the Spiritist's book is it
Yeah.
is. So, and Spiritists all the time, everywhere, praying or mentioning God, you can't say it or just say God. It says Father or He, right?
Yeah.
So it's understandable that thousands of years ago they believed in so many.
Yeah.
Or
We still struggle with the concept, right? Because we call God Father because it's what we've been doing for forever, right? But yeah, it shouldn't be he or she because it's not. Um, but people have issues with calling it also because of it not being a he or a she, right? So. And in Portuguese, that you don't have an it becomes even more complicated, right? Because you have to say him or her. There's no other way around, right? So yeah, we are still evolving. I mean, we hear people talking about Mother, Father, God, or other of these attributes, but um, again, as long as we in Spiritism, as we understand the concept, and that you brought very, very well that question number one, what is God? Because it clears says there that God is not a who, is a what, right? But yeah, we still have we will fully understand God when we are perfect spirit. So long way to go, right? Okay.
668. As spirit phenomena have occurred around the world since the dawn of time, could these phenomena have helped prompt the belief in multiple gods? Of course, because human beings applied the term God to whatever transcended humanity. Spirits were many gods for them. Whenever individual humans set themselves apart from others by their actions, their genius, or a mysterious power beyond the understanding of their fellow humans, they were made into gods and were worshipped as such after their deaths. In ancient times, the word God had a variety of meanings. It did not represent the master of nature as it does today, but was a generic term applied to all beings that appeared to transcend the ordinary human beings, as spirit manifestations reveal the existence of intangible beings acting as one of the elementary powers of nature. They called them gods, just as we call them spirits. This is merely a question of words, with the difference being that they built temples and altars out of ignorance and gave offerings that became highly lucrative for those whose interests were served. For us, spirits are more or less advanced creatures that have shed their human envelope. If we carefully study the different features of pagan divinities, we can easily recognize those of the spirits today at every level of the spirit hierarchy. Their physical state is in superior worlds, the role assumed by them in human life, and the various properties of the perispirit. In shining its divine light on our world, Christianity has taught us to only adore the sole object for which this esteem is due. It could not destroy an element of nature and the belief in the existence of spiritual beings around us that has been preserved under different names. Their manifestations have never stopped, but they have been interpreted diversely and often exploited under the shroud of mystery, hiding their true nature. While religion has regarded these spirit communications as miraculous, skeptics have labeled them as fraudulent. Spiritism is free from the superstition that has distorted the perception of these phenomena for ages. Therefore, through scientific investigation and serious study, it can now reveal one of the most sublime and important principles of nature.
Thanks. So, we know that, as we mentioned before, spirit phenomena have occurred around the world since there was a first incarnate and the first discarnate spirit on Earth, right? As we mentioned before, the term God was applied to whatever was associated with supernatural. So what we call spirits today were called gods for them. And if I was thinking of, for instance, the Greek mythology, right? You have the so-called demigods, right? Hercules. Hercules was probably someone very strong that because of his strength, people started looking at him as a semi-god, right? Because of his strength could not be human. He had to be from God. So from them, they created the whole 12 works and everything on, so the whole story around Hercules. And also the others, right? All the gods that were responsible for the different aspects of our life. So, of course, we were warriors going to war at all times, right? Fighting against the enemies, trying to conquer the enemies. And of course, we went to battle and we want protection, supernatural protection. So here comes a god or a goddess, in the case of the Greeks, right? A goddess of war, right? We need to hunt, so God for hunt. We need rain, so let's pray for the god of rain. And we have spirits associated with all the phenomena that happen in the world, right? We know nowadays through spiritism that we have spirits responsible for all the aspects of the physical nature of Earth, but they are not superior spirits. They work in the name of more evolved spirits, following their guidance, like those spirits work under the guidance of Jesus, right? So we couldn't grasp this concept in old times. So we would create these concepts of different gods. Now, when we talk about spirit manifestations, right? What were, how that's so a medium, can you imagine a medium? We had a medium at the time of the Greeks, for instance. It was the what they were called, the Pitonisa. Yeah. So you have the Temple of Delphi, right? And all
the oracle. The oracle?
Sorry, the oracle, yes. But the ladies that work there, how were they called?
I don't remember.
That's the language, Pitonisas.
Pitonisas in English also? Okay. So they were mediums, right? But when they were receiving the communication from the spirits, people would have different ways of interpreting and believing and to reach conclusions, of course, without fully understanding what type of communications they were receiving. So until Spiritism, mediumship was never properly studied, was never properly understood. There were mediums at all times, there were communications from the spirits at all times, but Spiritism brings an organization to the understanding of the mediumistic phenomena and of the understanding of who are these spirits that are on the other side, which are only us on the other side, giving communications with all our qualities and imperfections. And so the communications will be more or less evolved according to our degree of evolution. So, as Kardec says here, if we study the different features of pagan divinities, we can recognize those of the spirits today at every level of the spirit hierarchy, right? And then from Christianity, we just more or less carry the same understanding and the same concepts, right? We continue seeing these interpretations of spirit communications as something supernatural, right? Beyond ordinary, miraculous, or those that couldn't believe were, until today, they think it's a fraud, right? So Spiritism brings the organized understanding of mediumship, the organized understanding of the spiritual world. But it is still there, out there, the misconceptions that exist and the understanding of the spiritual world through the different beliefs, different religions, different spiritual followers, right? But the information is out there. So nowadays, with the availability of information out there, anyone that is interested in going deeper and studying more about life in the spiritual world has very different material available since the time of Spiritism, right? There are many spiritualist books that address the spiritual world and mediumship in different forms also. So information is out there. At the time, and ancient times, we didn't have access to this information. Okay? Questions, comments? Okay, now why did we do sacrifices?
669. The practice of offering human sacrifices dates back to antiquity. How could humankind ever think that God would appreciate this? First, they did not understand that God is the source of all goodness. Among primitive populations, matter outweighs the spirit. Due to the underdeveloped state of their moral qualities, they surrendered to their animal instincts, and that is why they were generally so cruel to their instincts of brutality. Second, the humans of prehistoric periods naturally considered a living creature to be much more valuable before God than any material object. This led them to offer sacrifices to their gods, first animals, then humans, because they thought that the value of a sacrifice was proportionate to the significance of the victim. When purchasing a gift for someone, you choose something with a cost or worth that is proportionate to how much you love, respect, or thought you would like to convey to the recipient. It was only natural for primitive human beings who were unaware of the nature of the Supreme Being to do the same. Did the sacrificing of animals precede that of human beings? There is no doubt about it. According to this explanation, the practice of sacrificing human beings did not originate simply out of cruelty. No, it originated from a false idea as to what would be pleasing to God. For instance, Look at the story of Abraham. In later times, humans have further corrupted this false idea by killing their enemies, the objects of their personal hostility. God has never carried out sacrifices of any kind, neither animals nor human beings. God would find no honor in the useless destruction of creation.
Okay, so again, we have to try to understand the concept of sacrifices, right? Because it always, as long as we understand our history, always happened, right? The misconception of God is, of course, partially responsible for the existence of sacrifices. The concepts of my God, your God, still exist today, right? Every religion believes that their God is the right God and the other gods are the wrong gods. When we know that there is only one God and there is nothing, the God is one and the same for all. But still today, we don't make sacrifices in the name of God, but we still kill in the name of God, right? Unfortunately, there are still wars out there today that are wars to disseminate my God, to persecute those who do not believe in my God, or that believe that their beliefs are different than my beliefs, right? And again, we see this actually very close to us. I was listening the other day a story of someone that was in a region here in the United States, and they asked what was her religion, and she said, "I'm a Catholic." So the person told her, "So you're not Christian?" And she said, "No, Catholics are Christians." "No, we are Christians, you're not." So you see, we still have this misconception of religions, and with the concept that our religion is the right one. And there is a philosopher that said something that I found very interesting when he was talking about religions. He said, there are 10,000 religions in the world, but don't worry, yours is the right one. We have to move beyond this concept, right? We have to try to understand God as the same God for all humankind, and even to understand some people that prefer not to believe in the God that we understand as the creator because of the lack of understanding of how a God would allow everything that happens around us to happen, right? You have to have a better understanding of spirituality and our spiritual nature as eternal spirits to have a better acceptance and understanding of this concept of God. But now, if we go back all the way to the time of the sacrifices, it makes it easier for us to understand why sacrifices, right? Because if my God is right and your God is wrong, I'm going to kill you to please my God, right? And I'm going to sacrifice you to my God. We started with animals because if animals were important for us, because if I have animals, I have food. So I imagine that my God needs food also. So I'm going to sacrifice some animals to God. You can understand the primitive concept, right? And you move from that to the sacrifice of humans with the concept that my God is right, your God is wrong. So I have to kill you to please my God. That makes us, of course, we're talking about this today, it looks barbarian, it looks difficult to understand, but it makes sense, right? If we still persecute today others that have different beliefs than ours, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 years ago, it's much easier for us to accept the idea that we were doing sacrifices, not because we, as it says here, not out of brutality or no, because we thought it was the right thing to do. We sincerely believe that by doing that, we were pleasing our God. And, you can imagine how this started, right? You have to go to fight to kill or be killed, right? And then you ask for whatever you want to call it to protect you. And then you succeed. And then, you come back and said, okay, I'm going to commemorate by killing this animal and eating this animal. And then you start thinking, well, if I'm eating this animal, I have to please my protector, whatever we call the protector, God, spirit, or whatever. And then we start, this becomes the norm, right? As we go, so from there we start sacrificing before. If I'm going to war, let me sacrifice before, so I'm going to be helped in the war. And this is very recent, right? We are, the sacrifices, the Christians were sacrificed, you're right, killed and given to the animals or in the arenas. Why, right? Because they think they believed in they had different beliefs and they were a danger to society, right? So they had to be persecuted.
No, but
We haven't evolved that much, unfortunately.
Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Even in the Old Testament, they have a bunch of examples of
Sacrifice.
sacrifice of animals
Yeah.
to the temple to please the god, and the size of an animal kind of represents how wealth the person was. So it's kind of, it comes from very old.
Yeah.
Very old.
Yeah, if you read the Old Testament, there's a lot of sacrifices there,
A
right?
lot of sacrifices.
And Jesus talks about it in you guys are watching The Chosen, right? You see the sacrifice of animals there, right? Not humans anymore, but humans were still persecuted and killed because they were, they were trying to poison the minds of those around them. Jesus was killed because of that, right? Because he was trying to bring a new concept. So I'm talking about all of this because when we read about these sacrifices, our immediate reaction is to think that this is barbarian. Yes, it is. But have we evolved enough to not to be doing similar things or, things not so good as they did the sacrifice? Because this sacrifice, they were honest sacrifice. They really believed what they are doing, right? And those that are killing those that think differently, they're not evil. They believe what they are doing, right?
I see that as like a way to say thank you for the gods, the sacrifice of the animals. And also a way to say, I'm giving you this, please protect me.
Yeah.
So, but even I don't see that's different, because the wars today, killing people from other religions, it's not a way to say thank you, it's not a way to say kind of please protect me. So it's kind of, that's more, I don't know the word,
Yeah.
but it's
It's
kind of, it's worse.
yeah, it's you can look at it as more complicated than
Yeah.
the other day I was watching an interview with an actor and he played an evil character, right? And so the reporter asked him, how did you prepare to play an evil character like that? And he said he didn't think he was evil. He thought he was doing the right thing. So I started thinking like him. If I was thinking I was doing the right thing, even if it was an evil act, how would I behave? And that's how I represented the role I had to play. And I started thinking, that's true, right? Nobody thinks they are evil. They do evil acts, but out of believe that they're doing the right thing, even if it's completely selfish and completely in the eyes of the majority wrong. As it says in the gospel, right? Even the most hardened criminals have their mothers that they love or their loved ones that they love, and they try to protect. So
Yeah, I like to say that, what you're saying is definitely, correct. It's understandable. But let's not forget that things that may be understandable may not be justifiable.
absolutely.
Okay.
Right. Oh, yes, absolutely. Not
Okay.
justified. If we talk morally and ethically, that's what, if we really follow the teachings of Jesus, love one another, love your enemies.
Love your enemies.
Jesus never said for us to do anything bad in his name. That's our misinterpretation or our own desires to persecute those that think different. Because if we truly follow the teachings of Jesus, love God above all, love one another, love your enemies. That's always love, and love implies into accepting others' limitations, others' mistakes, forgiving, and trying to understand and accept, right? Yes, you're absolutely right. Not justifiable by any means.
But even greater than the greatest sacrifice of human sacrifice human is with people of the same community. Not even going after the enemies, because sacrifice enemies is quite easy. You capture a soldier from another tribe, and well, who cares? Sacrifice the one. The sacrifice of the offering to God, one of the same community, the same tribe, the same group. Those are the big sacrifices that happen, especially in South America, the Incans, the Mayas, North Central America. Those are the real sacrifice. Because then I demonstrate to God that I will give one of my people going to protect me against a hurricane, against whatever may be. And Abraham is the greatest example. The angels are no sacrificing your own son, and Abraham was willing to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, he took his son, right?
That
Until
is
the
a
last
sacrifice.
moment.
That is a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And all the things that happen in the Synedrium, that is in the Old Testament, there was already business making. There was all given the Synedrium, each sacrifice, each thing that you needed required a certain animal, and you had to pay for it, and you could not bring you on, you have to buy their own. That was already money making.
Yeah.
And I think the most important sentence for me on this version 669 is the last one. God would find no honor in the useless destruction of the creation.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yes. Yes. If we
that sentence will be enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the next question deals exactly with that. Right. Go, Philip.
670. Has God ever appreciated human sacrifices when offered with a sincere religious intention? Never. But God always considers the intention that motivates any act. As primitive peoples were ignorant, they may have believed that they were performing a praiseworthy deed in sacrificing their fellow beings. In such a case, God would accept their intention, but not their act. The human race, in working on its own betterment, naturally came to recognize its error and loathe the idea of sacrifices, which never should have entered enlightened minds. I say enlightened because back then, spirits were enveloped by the veil of matter, and their free will was enough to give them a flickering glimpse of their own origin and destiny. Many among them already understood the evil they were committing intuitively, but they did it anyway for the gratification of their passions.
Yes, again, it's obvious that as we understand God today, God, a God that is perfect, understands that it's part of the natural law, our evolvement. So the intention is what is really matters, right? So because we were doing things out of ignorance, the responsibility is much smaller than doing things when we are aware of what we are doing. So as primitive people, where they're doing the sacrifices, they thought they were doing the right thing, but their intention was to do the right thing. So they would, again, the responsibility in their own conscience, because in the end, it's our conscience that judges us, that is the natural law, would be much less guilty, because we didn't understand our spiritual nature and the natural law. We misunderstood it, and we saw that it's important. So as the Spirit says here, right, that as we evolve, we start eliminating these sacrifices, or diminishing these sacrifices, until we no longer do these sacrifices mostly, right? Because there are still some sects that still do animal sacrifices that we know of, right? Not human sacrifices. Maybe some yes, maybe some tribe that we don't know of. Yes, primitive tribe that we don't know of. But we know of some religious sects that still do animal sacrifices, right? So we see that we are still very much connected to our primitive state of evolution, right? But again, the more we evolve, the more we understand, the more responsible we are for all those things that we are doing.
Well, the last paragraph of the conclusion of this book, there's a message from St. Augustine. And it says, good spirits never incite evil. They never devise or condone murder and violence.
Yep. It goes beyond God. Good spirits, right? More evolved spirits.
More evolved.
Yeah. Okay, 671.
What should we think of religious wars? It seems that the sentiment that induces a nation of fanatics to exterminate the greatest possible number of people who do not share their beliefs in order to please God comes from the same source as that which formerly led them to massacre their fellow beings as sacrifices. These wars are encouraged by wicked spirits, and the humans who wage them place themselves in direct opposition to God's will, which is that all human beings should love their brothers and sisters as they love themselves. All religions, or rather all people, worship the same God, regardless of the name they use. Why then would one attempt to exterminate the other simply because they believe in different religions, or because one has not yet reached the same degree of enlightenment as that of the aggressor? People may be excused for not believing in the word of the one who was animated by the Spirit of God and sent by God, especially since they have not seen him and have not witnessed the divine acts. In any event, how can we honestly hope that they would heed his message of peace when you try to force it upon them with violence? It is true that they need to be enlightened, and it is your duty to try to teach them Christ's doctrine. However, this must be done calmly and peacefully, not through violence. Consider that most of you do not believe in the communications we have with some humans. How could you then expect strangers to believe your claims in regard to this fact if your acts contradict what you preach?
Yeah, so here the questions about religious wars that we mentioned, right? How can this be a work in terms of in the name of God? It cannot, because it's in direct opposition of God's will, which is love one another. It doesn't say love one another that is close to you. It said love one another in general, right? Love your enemies, love the evil ones, love the good ones. Of course, we are far yet from the ability to put into practice, but to believe that those that think differently than us should be persecuted because they have different beliefs is a completely misunderstanding or misinterpretation of God's will. Because God's will is for us to love one another, help one another, and to evolve together. Everything that deviates from this, it doesn't come from God. And as they said here, it comes from wicked spirits that try to cause disturbances. And we see that happening all the time as we read about spiritual influences, that spirits are trying to influence us. And of course, spirits that want to sow disturbance and this discord, we are going to try to influence those that are open to listen to them. Now, those that are open to listen to them. So if you already bring with you these prejudices and these misconceptions of the understanding, it's very easy for the spirits to access your thoughts and make you act on your inferior tendencies and cause many of the problems we see out there nowadays, right?
I have a question.
Sure, Paco.
Okay, the point is, how much responsibility does the leadership of all those religions carry? Because I'm here, let's say, let's be, on the personal level, I'm here to learn as a study, a book study. But I've never heard here, this is the only path to God, and this is the only true path to God, and all others are condemned. I've never heard that here.
Yeah.
But you hear that in some other places.
Yes.
Let's face it. I'm going to go back to my personal story. I just had someone in Florida who just joined one of those fundamentalist churches from the South. And he would call me that, because I'm a spiritist, I'm not a Christian, and I believe in the devil. So what do? It's you see my point? Like, sometimes they are indoctrinated.
Yeah, they say here, right? This must be done calmly and peacefully, not through violence. Yeah, on our side, we have to accept.
And I would say, yeah.
We have to accept that some of these people are not interested. When I discuss spiritism and people talk about disseminating spiritism, I say, you have to talk to people that are interested in listening, that entertain the concept. If they are not interested in listening, or they have strong beliefs that are completely different from your beliefs, and they are not ready to and don't want to listen, then let's not waste our time and their time. If they believe that their God is the only right God and they're not willing to discuss it, what can we do, right? Time will take care of everyone. Everyone will eventually learn with time, in this incarnation, in the spiritual world, in the next incarnation, sometime. But at the moment, if the only thing we can do is wait, we wait. We don't allow them to cause harm to ourselves, right? We have to prevent bad things from happening. So we as a society have to have defense mechanism against those that are causing harm to others because of their beliefs. And this is very difficult, but it's necessary at this stage of our evolution. Okay? Thanks.
672. Is offering the fruits of the earth more acceptable in God's eyes than sacrificing animals?
Just a second. Daniela, yes.
Just to complement the comment you made, the way I see now, where I live now in Florida, which is very different than New York, the experience, I see that at the moment it became a thing like it's about denominations. So, like a Catholic is not a Christian, like, hello? So, when people ask me, what's your religion? I'm not going to say I'm a spiritist because of exactly what Paco said, which is, it's probably useless because they're going to associate with all those things. So I say I'm a Christian, but I think probably what they're interpreting is I'm an evangelical Christian.
Yeah.
And I don't care. So because they interpret the way they want, because I see that it's not about following Jesus' teachings. Which denomination do you belong to? Like my church is right. It's not even like God is like my church, my pastor. So it's really going back to the polytheism conversation, is humanizing, like is godifying the pastors, so it's very complex.
Yes, yes, and yes. I just have to say yes. What you said is so true. It is so true. What you say.
Yeah, all right. But we go back to what that philosopher said, right? There are 10,000 religions in the world, but don't worry, yours is the right one. Right? This is what these people think, right? They are the only ones that are right, and everyone else is wrong. What can we do? Nothing. Be patient. Pray. Time heals. Time will take care of them, like I almost says here, right? We all go back to the spiritual world one day, right? And then when we go back there, we'll find different avenues and different things to pay attention to. All right, so we're going to stop here. We're going to leave the last couple of questions for next week because our time is up. But this is a very interesting subject. I knew that we were going to have a lot of interesting discussions today. So this Saturday we have a lecture by Dr. Sonia Doi, The Evolving Role of Spirituality in Medicine. Dr. Sonia Doi is the former president of the International Medical Association. She's now back in Brazil, but she's going to talk about medicine and spirituality. Okay, so this is Saturday, 11 a.m. through the United States Spiritist Federation a YouTube page. On Sunday, it's the first Sunday of September, we are going to study the book Action and Reaction, chapter 8, the story of Silas, or Silas, depending on how you want to pronounce. The book club on Wednesday is going to discuss chapter 17, A Light in the Darkness, by Joana de Angelis and Divaldo Franco. And, for those that want, the Spiritist Symposium, the 19th Spiritist Symposium is happening on September 20th in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So if you want to join a Spiritist event, it's still time for you to go to Ann Arbor, that we can all meet there. Okay, September 20th, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Information's on spiritistsymposium.org. Okay, Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Yes, certainly can. Thank you very much for hosting, John. And thank you, Elmo. Thank you, Philip, for reading for us this evening. And all who are here, we thank you for participating. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks to be together for our studies of the Spirit's book, Book 3, Chapter 2, regarding polytheism and sacrifices. In the beginning, natural and supernatural powers were attributed to God, and eventually characteristics of the human kind were included. Polytheism is a concept of many separate facets of power with a wide range of representations. Spirits were called gods, small g, with hierarchy, and they were worshipped. There was spirit communication in primitive times, and it was labeled mysterious or miraculous. Spiritism, however, investigated and investigates and organizes the truth of mediumship to enlighten and free us from superstitions. Sacrifices were offered out of ignorance in the form of animals and humans. They were given in the hopes that it would be pleasing to God, which was considered a protector. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us this evening. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, our workers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all spiritual centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. May we remind ourselves to go forth now as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.